Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Athletics Canada Coaching Webinar Series. We've been off for the summer, because we had some track meets to go to and stuff. Simon's still there, as you can see. But we're excited to be back, bringing you some different topics in coach education, and a really good one today. Definitely a popular request. We're going to talk about being on the world stage, insights into national team coach selection. My name is John LaFranco. I'm the manager of coaching education for Athletics Canada. In the background is my colleague Kyle Smith. He is going to be the one that will monitor for your questions and just sort of any sort of technical issues. He'll be managing those. And of course, we have our esteemed guests, Simon, Nathan, and Ingrid Ruys. We'll get to them in a sec. I just want to do some sort of housekeeping first. In case you've never been on our webinars, you're all muted. It's just us talking, but if you have questions, you can put them in the questions dialog box on your screen. We've got some prepared questions, and then if there's questions from you as well, we'll have some time to answer those at the end. We will do our best to get to all of your questions. Vous pouvez aussi demander des questions en français, et Simon va les répondre. Probablement avec mon aide de traduction. So the webinar is being recorded and will be posted in the coming days on the AC YouTube channel. And coaches who entered their NCCP number when you registered will get one PD point for your participation in this webinar. And if you're thinking of other coaching education stuff, you can check out our events calendar, athletics.ca/events. And just because there's a lot coming up, I just wanted to kind of go through a few of the things. There's a performance coach course in Toronto, October 20th, 23rd. Actually, that's closed now, but if you email Sahid and beg him, he might let you in. There's a performance coach course going on in New Brunswick on the weekend of November 3rd, and there's still space there. We're doing throws, jumps, and endurance. The National Speed Summit is taking place in Saskatoon on November 17th. Our National Mentorship Program is open for applications, and the kickoff meeting will be December 2nd and 3rd in Edmonton. And the National Endurance Summit will be December 9th in Halifax. So we are all over the country this year, and we're looking to get the throw summit and the jump summit sometime in winter and spring, probably BC and Ontario, but to be confirmed. And the rest of our webinars for this fall, we've got one coming up October 26th. It's called Embrace the Trails, Introducing Athletes to the Thrills of Trail and Mountain Running. So that's going to be a good one. We've got Adrian Lambert and some folks from mountain running on that one, so it's going to be pretty good. And we're also looking to organize something in November around the hammer throw, because apparently Canadians are pretty good at hammer throw. So we're going to talk to the coaches out west who were instrumental in getting those athletes to the podium, and just talk about how they did that. So that is our action-packed fall. But now let's get to our guests, Simon and Ingrid, and talk about national team stuff. So Simon, why don't you start? Can you just tell us who you are in case the people don't know, and what brings you here tonight?
Hi, hello everybody. Don't know me, I'm Simon Nathan. I'm the High Performance Director for Athletics Canada, which means that I'm responsible for the Own the Podium money, which comes through Sport Canada and the COC and CPC to run a high performance program trying to win medals at major championships. You might tell from my accent I'm not originally Canadian, this is if you count the UK, Ireland's different countries, this is my 5th country I've worked for. If you count them as one country, this is the 3rd country I've worked for in high performance athletics. I started in 1977 as an under 13. I'll just tell you the championships I've been to, because we're talking about major championships here. So I've been to 14 multi-sport games, 4 Olympics, 5 Commonwealth Games, 2 FISUs, Paralympic Games, Pan Am Games, Para-Pan Am Games, 32 World Championships, including the World Championships and the Para World Championships, but also World Indoors, World Relays, 2 World Cross Countries, World Race Walking, 4 World Under-20s, 2 World Under-18s, 24 area championships, 41 international matches. So I reckon I counted for this webinar 111 international matches, and I used to keep a count, but well over 500 days of major competitions, about a year and a half. So I've lost my count a little bit. So and in that, I've been a personal coach to athletes on those teams and been accredited, or I've been a team coach, or I've been a team manager, or I've been a team leader. And you'd think I'd have learned something now. I'm still, even in Budapest, the World Championships there, things happened which I've never seen or heard about before. Like, it's just constantly a changing environment. So that's me. And now Ingrid's going to tell me about double all the numbers, so that's okay.
I was going to
Yes.
start out by joking that I'm not quite as old as you yet. No, I'm just kidding. I'm actually way older than Simon, but started way later. So I can't come close to Simon, but absolutely have learned a lot from him over the years. So yeah, I started in the 90s coaching and at the university level. So, and I've been involved in teams from Canada Games, Legions, right up through to Olympics, Paralympics, as well as World Championships in a variety of roles. So I'm a jack of all trades and apparently a master of none. So, well, that's my opinion. But
well,
so yeah, thank you.
That's great. So you can tell we have 2 very experienced individuals here today to talk about this. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, though, is just sort of logistically speaking, if I'm a coach that I would like to have the opportunity to start, my journey to 111, games in 500 days or whatever, it starts with a single step or perhaps a single click. How do we find out about these opportunities, Simon?
So I think I'll start with that. So the process in Canada is once a year around the November, December time, we put out a call for applications, and that's put on the website, but the main communications method for that is our high performance newsletter. Anybody who's not on that wants to be, just send an email and we'll subscribe you.
Where do you send the email, just so people have that?
National teams at athletics.ca.
There you go.
They'll link you up.
Great.
And I'm sure Carl has a proper link on the website as well, which does the same thing.
Yeah.
And in that, you say if you want to apply to be a team manager or a team coach, and you say what your experiences are and your coaching qualifications, and of all the events we have on in the next 12 months, which ones do you want to be considered for? That list then goes to the branches, and the provinces actually rate the coaches from their province, from whoever they think is the best and most experienced to the one who thinks the least experienced. The majority of provinces participate in that. Some provinces hate the idea and refuse to do it, but the vast majority do that. That then comes back to me, and we add in all of our employed coaches and the national teams committee. So they're sort of added on as well into the big pool. We sit down with I allocate a team leader for each team. So Glenroy Gilbert's always the team leader of the major able-bodied games of the year, Olympic Games or World Championships. Carla Nichols is always the team leader of the major Paralympic competition that year, the Paralympic World Championships or whatever. And each of the events has a team leader. So myself, Glenroy and Carla sit with each of the team leaders in a big meeting, and we go through and we literally fill out the names of the biggest competition of the year first. So who do you want to the Olympics? And we work from there down through the lead-up competitions to that, down to the age group competitions, down to the specialist events like the road running or race walking, and work our way through that based on trying to balance 1,000 things, which I can talk about later if you want, and some of the provincial scoring systems. And then we invite everybody along, and then some change their minds because life works that way, and you're not always available, and you know, things
You
change
break
on
you
work.
break your knee, and Ingrid has to take your place.
Exactly, all those strange things. So we then go back and revisit the list, and sometimes that takes a bit of shuffling. But that's the main thing. If you want to get involved, then you have to apply online. And I think there's a minimum coaching qualification level. You can talk more to that than me. And there definitely is for the Olympics and Paralympics as well.
Yeah. So yeah, the minimum coaching level is performance coach certified to be considered. You also have to go through the chartered professional coach process on through CAC. And I mean, if you have one, then it's not like a big challenge to get the other. Usually you'll get it. You just have to sort of pay the fee, and you have to do criminal record check, which most branches for, member coaches have to do that anyway. You probably have to do safe sport module, which again, most coaches have to do that anyway. So the main thing is the performance coach certification. I think that is the sort of the line that is drawn there. So thank you, Simon. That's a great view of the whole process. So to go back to, like, I'm seeing the list and I'm wondering, like, should I apply? Who should apply? Like, assuming I have the credentials and stuff, who should apply? Why should they apply? Like, who are you looking for here?
You want me to start with that?
Yeah.
So there are several different pots and several different things. So I'll answer that in 4 different ways if I can. So first of all, technically, so we need to cover every event group. So if we've got throwers, jumpers, sprinters, we need a throws coach, a jumps coach, a sprints coach. We have to cover that. So people should apply if they cover any of those events, particularly if they cover the more unusual events, road running or race walking, and it's always difficult to have quality coaches in those spaces. So we have to cover those pieces, and we want age-appropriate staff. So we want university coaches that work with university athletes to be our FISU coaching staff, because they know how to manage those people. We want people who are used to working with school kids and just post-school kids and are experienced with working with that age group to be our under-20s or under-18 coaches. We want people who are used to working with full-time professional athletes to be working with the Olympic team or the Paralympic team. So if you have those specialists, we need to know about it. Team coaching is a very different skill set from personal coaching, and we need those. And I can talk to that later, or probably Ingrid's better placed than me to talk to that. And we need to build a team of personalities. So we if you've got a real rah enthusiastic person, you probably want someone that's a bit calmer and steadier personality. And if you've got a group of very, very experienced coaches, you probably want to put at least one person in there that's less experienced, so that we've got some legacy to all of these things. So we've got to cover all those technical aspects. We've got to balance the team, and there's lots of pressure on us from all sorts of different places, that we have a gender balance, that we have visible minorities on the team, that we have both the languages, official languages represented on the team with someone fluent. There's sometimes that all the branches are represented, that they have at least one go from each branch. Like I said, a balanced experienced and less experienced. Do we have everybody professional coach, or do we have some honorary coaches in there as well? Leading into Olympic Games, for example, we have a no new faces policy. The last thing our Olympic team needs is to see a stranger just when they're walking into the scariest day of their life, walking into the stadium. So those teams tend to be very stable, and we try to get to the right team the year before or 2 years before. So I wouldn't try and apply for the Olympic team this year if you've never been on team before, because it's just not going to happen. But we have a lot of smaller teams, and we're already looking at what's our team going to be in LA in 2028, and where are our gaps, and where are people going to retire or resign, all those things. I think the important thing to understand as well is why we even have team coaches, because every athlete on the team has a personal coach. There are very, very few athletes that don't have a coach. And the number one reason is accreditation. So we only have a certain number of accreditations that are very limited. and lots of different accreditation types, and only get to certain places. But Olympic Games, we can only get so many people actually close to the athletes. So they can't work with their personal coach, and actually their personal coach might not be able to get within literally 400 or 500 meters of them, except we're in the stadium. So athletes have to get used to having team coaches and people that aren't their personal coach and working with them. So we do that all the way down the system. And the other piece obviously is budget, because we can't pay for everybody to be everywhere all the time. And that makes a difference as well. And then the last thing is a balance of coach qualifications as well. So who should apply? Honestly, anyone that's qualified, because there's so many gaps and there's so many holes and there's so many competitions we have, but only if you are doing it because you want to coach teams, not because you want the uniform or you want the status of going to those competitions. We're really looking for people that want to help the athletes in front of them, and work with other coaches in collaboration, not I've got one athlete who's on that team, I have to be the team coach, so I look after them, and I don't care anything about anybody else. So that's all those things go into the balance. There's so many different things we have to balance up. Honestly, everybody has a chance. And even if you don't get onto a team, every year we have warm weather training camps, and we try to pick 1 or 2 apprentice coaches to go on the warm weather training camps, because we think they're going to plug a gap somewhere and expose them to the athletes and just see how they work on the ground and have a chance to get to know them, to meet them a little bit. And at the moment, probably for every 3 apprentice coaches we send, typically maybe in a winter we'd send 3 apprentice coaches, we'd have 2 females and 1 male, because our biggest, most obvious gap in coaching at the moment is competent female coaches who have experience of coaching at the highest end. So I mean, if you're a good female coach out there, definitely apply, but that doesn't count out anybody else. Does that help?
Yeah, that's great. I think that it gives a really good, picture of what the whole makeup is. Sometimes, as you say, you're a coach and you're thinking, well, I have an athlete who's going to make this team, so I should probably apply for that team. But maybe Ingrid can talk to this, as Simon's sort of given the sort of official line, so to speak. But like, what when you get there on these teams, and not necessarily like the big games, but where someone might start at a sort of a U20, or like one of the like a cross country or whatever. Like, what's the job? Like, what happens when you get there, or before you leave, even?
Yeah, even before you leave, it's getting together and meeting with everyone, right? Discussing with the other coaches, knowing your role. Like, don't overstep your role. Work with the head coach. The head coach is usually from AC or somebody that we've worked with before and knows how to do this. They will give you the best guidance and leadership without overloading you with information. The other thing is your versatility. A lot of times we're on the ground and you might have 3 jumpers, and then you have to go over and do pole vault. Like, if you've got the versatility, let people know that you can be versatile. And please don't so single-handedly focus on being on top of everything and everywhere to everyone. It's balance. And that's why you're right about the training environment. Go to a training camp. Learn what you can see. You can see how everybody works together and where your strengths and weaknesses are, to be able to bring to the team, because it's valuable. It's very valuable on the ground that you've got that ability to be versatile and help.
Yeah, that's great. What is as a team coach, like, what is your relationship with the personal coach of the athletes? Because as Simon said, they're not necessarily or likely to actually be there. So how do you work with them, and with to make sure the athlete is sort of the smooth transition to the event?
So ahead of time, you obviously start working with the personal coach. They are the ones that actually got that athlete to this level. They have obviously the most inherent knowledge of the athlete, and you want to make sure that transition is smooth and clean. You don't want to be adversarial for sure, but you want to be, like, find out from the coach what the likes, the dislikes, how you can help best the athlete, because it's about the athlete at the end of the day. Try to help the coach in being able to see the athlete when they need to. If they need 5 minutes for a prep or a talk, that's fine. But you are really the liaison on the ground, not the personal coach. And a lot of times the personal coach is via either Zoom or via email, you don't even get to be in the country. So, make sure that you are the liaison. You are not their personal coach. Don't try to change the world. Don't try to say to the coach, you don't know what you're doing, because they do. They got them there. So you are there for the athlete first. You work with the coach to make sure you bring forth what the personal coach, the consistency, the same old practices, and you're there for the athlete to do the best so they can perform to the best they can be.
Nice. Yeah. So it sounds like being a team coach is a sort of interesting combination of, a lot of sort of expertise and versatility, and experience, but also like low ego and sort of,
and eyes on you're the eyes, right? So you're the one there. So oftentimes, a coach may want to videotape or, and that's fine. Do what you can to help the athlete, but also don't ignore the coach. The coach brought them there.
Yeah, for sure. So what are some things, so you mentioned, both of you, your extensive experience, what are some unexpected things that you've had to deal with in international travel sort of competition? Because I mean, I know I have some stories, whenever NACAC's involved, is always something fun. What just to give people an idea that it's never routine, any good stories come to mind?
That can be repeated. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Obviously, travel is always one of the biggest nightmare, as well as accommodation. Sometimes you never know what you're going to get. You're going to get a roommate. A lot of people, whoa, I don't want that person. We try and smooth as much as we can ahead of time, but you have to realize we can't alter everything. But I know Simon's got interesting stories, but we've had everything from concussions and, hospital visits, or, lying on the track, or, missing. And we've had everything. Athletes go missing. I haven't had that, but I know of a story.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of things, and you have to be able to see everything. But yeah, it's be prepared and be adaptable. You can It's not set in stone. Nothing ever goes at a track meet the way it's supposed to. Although I'd like to dream one day.
Yeah.
So I'll give one, and then
I had a tear gas situation one time. That was go ahead, Simon.
So away from the more extreme issues, I think the thing to understand is, particularly I think at every level, these are really, really important periods of time for the athletes, and it's really important period of time for their personal coaches, and it's stressful, and they're really emotionally engaged, so they do some odd stuff, and small things can really blow them up. And the World Championships in Germany, I don't even remember the year anymore. The hotel that we were in was 35-minute drive from the stadium. That's quite normal. So you wake up in the morning, you have your breakfast, you get on a bus with all your competitors, and you go 35 minutes to the warm-up track. We hang there for half an hour. You do your warm-up in the warm-up track. You then go into a cool room for 25 to 35 minutes and get out on the track and compete. And that's the general sort of logistical pattern. And some people are okay with that. Some people try to cut it short. Some people try to, really just take it to the last minute. And again, it's one of the roles of the team coach to advise, well, maybe even if you're a bit bored, get there early or whatever. But we had an athlete who wasn't prepared to do that, and hated the warm-up track environment, didn't want to be there for very long before they went into the stadium. So they got on a bus, the official transport piece, and the buses in Germany, I think they were 55 seaters, and in Germany it's against the law for them to have 56 people on the bus. And it was the last bus for one of the major events, and there was a huge scramble to get people on. And there were a number of personal coaches who were just pushing athletes from other countries off, so they could get on because they wanted to be with their athletes. And as a team coach, you make sure your athlete's on there, and if necessary, you get a taxi, you find some other way to make it happen. But that got very emotionally charged on the bus, because some of the coaches from other countries were getting in a stand-up fight with coaches from other countries. The bus driver was very bemused, didn't know what to do, and eventually just shut the door and drove off, leaving about 20 people behind. So those 20 people had to deal with whatever they had to deal with. I ended up being on the bus with the athlete I was responsible for as team coach. And because this thing had taken about 5 or 10 minutes, the bus driver got 3/4 of the way to the stadium and just stopped and said, "I'm on my break now," and opened the door and walked out of the bus and had a cigarette. And it's illegal in Germany. Again, they can work so many hours, then they have to have a break. And obviously they're normal people, they can be flexible. But he was so upset by all this other messing around, and he'd gone over his time. It was, that's it, I don't care about you crazy people. I'm going to have my cigarette. He had his 10 minutes. And people on the bus were going absolutely insane. They were screaming and shouting and getting very, very emotional. He got back on and drove through. Now, there are several things you can do as a team coach. The first thing you can do as a team coach is the athlete will look at you and their reaction will be how you react. Like you're a stewardess on an airplane, doesn't matter what's happening, they always look calm and like this is all normal and whatever. And so I have to find a way of keeping the athlete calm. You also have to know the rules inside out and back to front. And what athletics rules are, if the official transport is delayed, they have to delay the competition. If you decide to walk to the stadium, or you get a taxi to the stadium, or you try to be clever some other way, that's your problem. But if you go on the official transport, then and there's a problem, they have to delay the whole competition regardless of anything else and wait for you to arrive. So I knew who to contact. I contacted them. I trusted them to get on and do the job, and just was calm and didn't upset them. Just said, "Look, this has happened. Make sure you communicate." And back to the athlete again, and then ringing ahead so that by the time we got there, we could fast track them through their warm up. They had a routine with a physiotherapist and a masser, and they were both ready to go, and they didn't have anybody else around. And as calm as we could, we just got them to the position, and we got them checked in. And in the end, that person won a medal a couple of days later, a few rounds later. But it could have gone very, very pear-shaped along the way. And definitely other countries were lost the plot and their athletes went. And actually one of the big tricks is to say, look at these people going crazy. We're staying calm. So we're going to have an edge over them just by being calm and being resilient. We've already built in an edge. So it's a real thing that happened. You don't read about it in the coaching books. You just have to be fast on your feet, know the athlete and know the rules, and then you're a good team coach.
That's a fantastic story with a good lesson. Yeah, I mean, staying calm. I think what you said, it's true in all situations of coaching, right? However you are, the athletes will react that way. If you're jumping around and excited, which sometimes is warranted, then the athletes too. But yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was gonna say, I was at Francophone Games, and this was actually sort of more of it wasn't really competition related because the competition was done, but we'd been invited to watch the gold medal soccer game. So this was like in the same stadium that we were used to going to, but after the competition was over. And we went in and there was some kind of disturbance outside, and there was tear gas that was like coming into the stadium, and then people were like running onto the field, and it was just a whole big mess. And we had actually like a security detail with us, and they kind of made the call. They're like, okay, we need to leave. So it was again a situation of like the coaching staff is like, okay, we're gonna leave, but we're not panicking, we're not freaking out, we're gonna go this way, and everyone's gonna follow, and we're just gonna go over here, and we're gonna wait here, and we're gonna get in this bus, and then we're gonna leave. And yeah, and people are getting very upset, and obviously running around everywhere, tear gas and stuff. I don't think it got to us too bad, but it's a scary situation. And this is, I think, one of the things that you're, like you said, Simon, it's a very important time. People are there, it's like this is the peak of their season, and so it can be very emotional. And something like that where like you might looking back on it, you think, oh, that was like pretty exciting, but like in retrospect it was fine. But like at the moment, like you can be quite upset because it's like this is supposed to be your moment, and now you're like running out of the stadium or whatever. So yeah, another time I was first into Costa Rica for this like a half marathon thing, and this was just post-COVID, so the manager was not with us, like she was at home, and we were kind of talking by text. And so the team manager said, okay, this is a hotel, and I'm in the cab going to the hotel, and then I got the message from the team manager. They just told me the hotel is a different hotel now. So I'm like in the cab trying to explain to the cab driver who doesn't speak English, I have to go to a different hotel. And it worked out, but the key there was that I was there first. So I was going through all of this. And then when the athletes arrived like later in the day, it's like, we know the hotel, we know the route. And it's a very smooth transition. So I think that's another thing is as the team leader, like, you know, if it works that you kind of get in there early, or at least you do research to know like what the setup's going to be and know what to expect as well. That can be good, because then the athletes did not have the situation that I had personally, but that's okay. It's like fine. I take it's okay for me. I take it for the team. Um, that's great. So anything else that you can think of that coaches should know, either about the process or going into, if they do get selected, kind of going into it, what they should expect, like especially someone who's never been selected before, and they're like, okay, now you're going to be selected. What should they prepare for?
I'll talk a bit about how I got selected for the first teams that I went on, because I think it was because I was advised by another coach, who my personal coach was the British head coach for 4 years for the Olympic program. So he sort of gave me some advice about the way to go. He coached me. I would strongly advise, if this is your ambition, find someone that's done this stuff before and have them coach you. These aren't skills people are born with. But I went to there happened to be a FISU in Sheffield in the UK, so World University Games in Sheffield in the UK, and I was an ambitious coach and I enjoyed it and I wanted to be good, so I just paid my own way and just watched it. I didn't have an athlete there, I didn't have anybody else there. I just went and watched the major championships to see what it was like, and that was really interesting. And then I coached a couple of kids up to be on these teams, and I was the personal coach of some 2 or 3 athletes at World Junior Championship level. And then I made it, and then I got on to the local, so they went by counties in the UK. I got onto the county team and volunteered a couple of times to be a county team coach when that sort of made sense in that environment. And then I said, look, I want to be on a national team, and I've done these things, and I've done this off my own bat. I've learned some stuff. Now I want to learn more and be a team coach. For me, I'm always looking for coaches on teams who have coached at least one athlete to that level as a personal coach. If they've never coached any athletes at all to that level and never competed at that level, it's probably too early for them. They've got to have one or other of those, and actually, even if they've competed at that level, it's better to have coached up to that level. So that's definitely what I'm looking for when I'm making appointments that way around. So, yeah, I think I just want to get a point across. I don't know if Ingrid have anything to add or different point.
Well, similar to yourself, I mean, at the beginning, like training camps, go see some training camps, go see how it's being done at our level. And then I did legions, tri-provincials, provincial teams. You start local and provincially, and then you move to Western Canada or in Eastern or whatever, wherever you live. But you can't just expect to walk in and go to the Olympic Games. It's just not real. So please do it. First of all, apply. You can't go anywhere without applying. So make sure you apply. You're not going to get on the list if you've never applied. And then do training camps, try to do the local, move your way up. Absolutely. If you've got a team or an athlete already on the team, that just benefits. And it's all looked at in the criteria. If you've got an athlete, it helps you. So yeah, all those things are and I liked your approach. I never thought of going to watch. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I actually just lucked out on that myself. I was in university and I was in Belfast in 1999, and World Cross Country was there. So I wrote to I think it was Marek Jedrzejczyk was the head coach. I wrote to Marek. I was like, hey, I'm here. Can I hang out with you guys? And he was like, yeah, sure, John, no problem. So I just got to go and basically just try to not be in the way, but like meet Kevin Sullivan and stuff, and go to the races and like watch World Cross Country like that, which was just, I mean, at that point I was still just sort of a pretty mediocre university athlete, but it was just to see the international athletes just like flying by. It was like, oh, okay. And also just to see the Canadian team, and just to kind of see how they worked, and the professionalism of it. I think you know, it's not like at the time I was like, okay, I'm gonna think about this and like try to be on national teams later. It was just I, you know, as a runner, World Cross Country was where I was. Like, how was I not going to go there, right? But the professionalism really struck me, and I think that's like everything that you talked about, the examples, like, you know, Simon, your bus story. It's all about professionalism and just, you know, staying calm and knowing, like, even just like knowing the rule that like they'll delay for this bus, so you don't need to panic. It's so, you know, just yeah, just that stuff. And like you said, it's not something we teach in the coaching courses necessarily. Maybe we should, I don't know. But it's yeah, it's good to get that experience. And you know, I think our mentorship program can be helpful. Like most of our mentors, if not all of them, have been on national teams and in probably a lot of national teams. So that can be something that, you know, proteges can ask their mentors about and learn about. Ingrid, you look like you want to say something there.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that, because that knowledge of the technical rules, please know the rules. It's very annoying to have, you know, coaches run up and say, well, appeal this, when there's no grounds for appeal. So it is very helpful to know the rules, as you said. So thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah. Appeals seem to happen more often internationally than like in like all the sort of university coaching and club coaching I've been involved with. Never any appeals. All of a sudden, like every team I'm on, there's like an appeal. So you have to be ready for that and know what that's about. And, I mean, I guess that goes to the staff too, and like this should be at least someone who's dealt with that before. But
so it's an interesting thing with appeals, and yes, a lot more happen at major championships, partly because the swings for the athletes are life-changing. Between fourth place and a medal, you know, the most appeals will be between, you know, 9th place and the last semi-finalist, or 8th place and I made the final, or 4th place and a medal, or between the medals. That's progressing around. And for the athletes, that can be, you know, well, 10, 20, 30, into the millions of dollars swing one way or the other. So you have to represent them. And then some countries absolutely specialize in progressing all their athletes, and you know, the American team, because they're a big team and they have lots of accreditations, take a lawyer, and the lawyer sits out the technical information outside the technical information center all day, all night, never goes on the track, and you know, uses his skills to write appeals and make sure that the Americans always are treated fairly. You can't ever be treated unfairly through an appeal. It's just make sure that they're treated fairly. So it used to be a big thing. Having said that, it is now much, much less of a thing than it used to be. What happens if something goes wrong? They take you to the video room, and at these big championships in the big stadiums, they will have 8 to 10 high definition, high res cameras on every piece of action in the whole stadium all the time. And you go in and they say, this is what we've decided. Do you agree? And you look at the videos and you say, oh yeah, okay. And things very rarely go to appeals now. Far, far fewer appeals than there ever used to be. And again, you need to know the rules, but in the long jump, they don't have anybody mark where you land anymore. It's just done by a screen and a cursor that moves on the screen. And if you have a problem, they save the image of every single jump and every single landing, and you can go there half an hour later and recheck that it was the right distance or it wasn't, you know. But yeah, appeals are a major thing. You have to be ready for them. You have to know those rules. The athlete, you have to be able to advise the athletes how to appeal, particularly the field event athletes. But actually going all the way through the process and getting to the end and changing the outcome is far rarer in the past 4 or 5 years than it's been in all the time I've been doing this.
Yeah.
Having said that, so I'll give you one more example about appeals.
Yeah.
NACAC under 23s championships, Ingrid, we had a hurdler who looked like they were going to get a medal, and then clashed with a Jamaican hurdler on the other side. And as a Jamaican hurdler crossed the line, he appealed and said, I was knocked off balance, and the Canadian was disqualified. And that went through the appeal process, and the disqualification was upheld. So that was unfortunate. And the coach and the team coach both got very, very upset by that and asked to see a copy of the official video, which is what you can do. And the copy of the official video was terrible, absolutely terrible. And it was because the camera was up in the stands filming from the side. And then it turned out after the competition, the reason it was there was it only had one video camera, and they took it up to video the opening ceremony, and they forgot to take it back down and position it head on to the race. So it didn't have a proper angle. And had that happened, then the outcome might have been different. The lesson from that is you can't fix human failure. That happens, but you still do need to know how to appeal exactly. You still need to run the rules, because you never know, even though it's rarer, you never know when that needs to happen. And actually, you probably need it more now on the age group competitions than you do on the big end multi-million-dollar competitions. So, yeah. Ingrid was there. I think I got that right. You can tell me.
Yeah, I think so. It all runs together. But you are correct, like same as the long jump board, right? The board they have it all marked, and they are willing to come and show you the video. Yes, that was over, and it was much appreciated. It saves an appeal, saves everything. Everybody knows right away. So it's I hate to admit, it's much better with modern technology.
So what we do actually is we photograph or video the big screens and send that back to the personal coaches as well, and show it to the athletes so they can also see, so everybody can understand what's been going on.
Okay. It's been great. I think that this is really eye-opening for folks. We still have time for questions. If there are questions, type them into the question box or the chat. I think I saw a hand up before, but we can't do spoken questions. But if you want to type your question into the box, we can answer it.
While you're waiting for any questions, John, just one more point I want to make is what my coach said to me was, if you were the parent of an athlete, who would you want to be the team coach? It's like, I really want to be a team coach. I really want to be a team coach. And he said, if you're a parent of an athlete, would they want you to be their team coach? Well, no, I'd want the best coach there was in the whole of the UK to be the team coach for my son, but everybody else can have the young enthusiastic guy. And you have to keep that in mind. Like, you really are trying to represent and do that. And it's a process of steps and getting there and building experience out in a world that it's hard to learn any other way than by experience, honestly, or mentorship is probably the other way as well. But we won't have a huge turnover in coaches. We won't have a huge change. Everything evolves, because the more experienced you are, the more experienced you are. And then you become the top guy just by being alive for a long time and seeing lots of different things. And that's a real factor too, that is frustrating when you're young and trying to break in. But just picture if it was your son or daughter who was there, and who would you want to be in charge on their biggest day?
Yeah, and be realistic. Like, you're going to have maybe 500 applicants for 10 teams. Like, we obviously can't pick everybody, and we try to fit the best in the best spots. And we also try to bring, people up so we can mentor them. So it's not, and don't give up just because it didn't work the first time. Maybe it's, oh, great, but now your name's noticed. We see you again next year. It just helps. So yeah, please don't be discouraged, but please be realistic.
That makes sense. Yeah. And it's you need to be in a hurry. Every 4 years there's Olympics, and in between there's all kinds of meets. And Simon, how many teams are there coming up in 2024? Do you have an idea?
A lot.
A lot. Okay.
So we have, I think, it's World Cross Country. We have an incredibly important World Relay Championships, because the top 14 teams from that now qualify for the Olympics. It's essentially the only route into Olympic qualification for relays. So that's in May. There's also the World Race Walking Team Championships. And again, that has this new marathon race walk, and the top 24 teams, I think, qualify from that. And there's only a few other teams go through. So that's very significant. They're then proposing a NACAC Championships in May as well, which will be very useful if it happens.
Seniors,
because that's a major bonus point winning event. So all of that activity is before the end of May. There's probably something in the middle of the year, but then there's and then also in May is the Kobe Paralympic World Championships. It's the first time ever they put a World Championships in the same year as the Paralympic Games. And that's a knock-on from COVID. So that's a very interesting piece. And as soon as that's finished, the Paralympic team will run a European tour, not so much a championships, but they'll send a team to Europe and do 4 or 5 events, mostly in Switzerland, and then come back.
Yeah. Okay.
And then there's the Olympic Games, and then there's the World Under-20 Championships, and then after the World Under-20 Championships is the Paralympic Games. So there is a massive amount of activity next year, and it's impossible for us to say, I don't know, Simon Nathan's the best triple jump coach in Canada, so every time there's a triple jump event, he's going.
Yeah.
We can't do it, and we have to rest people, and some of those events are more important than others. But there are a lot of activities going on. There doesn't tend to be a lot of age group events in the Olympic year. They'll come up again the year after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm tired just thinking about it. It's a lot of events. All right, so we did have a question. It was a question for me. So the question was to clarify the chartered coaching, the chartered professional coach. So Kyle's gonna pop in the chat the link. You can read about it there. Essentially, there's sort of, if you follow the link, there's sort of 3 things: knowledge, experience, and ethics. And so what's needed is so I'm just going to go here. Usually, again, similar, like a performance coach certification, and then a criminal record check, and then you sort of sign off on some ethics. And I think you also need some reference letters or something like that. There's an application process, and you have to pay for it. It's $100. Also, to meet the requirement for national teams, you can also be a registered coach. So a registered coach, it's a less sort of I guess, I don't know what the word is. Egregious is not the right word. Difficult kind of standard. It's focused more on the ethics side of things. So you still have to have the criminal reference check, or the criminal record check, the references, and the declaration, but not necessarily the coaching certification part. But again, usually you would have that anyway. So that's it. But the link that Kyle put in the chat there takes you through it. And if you go in the locker, there's actually a button that you can click to apply, and then it just asks you these questions, and then you can answer them, and then you're good. So hopefully that's helpful. Any other questions for the more experienced people, not just me? It's interesting that the people want to know about the particular application requirements.
While people are putting questions in, another point I maybe should have mentioned is at the end of every international competition we run, we send all the athletes who participated and the staff a survey, and part of that survey, all of the team managers, the team leaders, the team coaches are all rated by the athletes. And we also, we do occasionally get people who are not rated very well, and who aren't appreciated by the athletes, and that obviously also goes into the staff selection piece. Obviously, if everything's 10 stars, then we probably will have you on further teams, but we do have people who don't get rated highly, and in general we try to feed back to them if it's possible and appropriate, and let them know that they haven't been rated well and what they might want to do about that in the future to change things. So that happens as well.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, I think it shows that there's some, sort of transparency and follow-up. Like it's not like, okay, you've been on a team, that means automatically you can be on another team. You still have to, as with the athletes, you still have to perform. Okay, another question sort of coming in here. Maybe just sort of a look at the kind of day-to-day. So we got this sort of extreme bus ride experience, but maybe just sort of like the team meetings and how the day looks like going to the track, the warm-up track. Obviously it's different in each competition, but maybe kind of like a typical day for a team coach at one of these competitions.
I'll start, Ingrid, or shall I? I'll go first, and then you fill in the gaps. So, so the team leader decides how that looks. The general pattern at the moment for and it depends, as you said, on the venues and those things, but the general pattern is there's a head coach, there's a chief medical officer, there's a lead team manager, and every single day those three people will report to the team leader. And what they report on is how their section is doing. So the head coach at Glenroy at the Olympic Games will just report on how all the coaches are doing and how all the athletes are doing. And he'll meet before that meeting, he'll meet with all of his coaches. So Glenroy likes to start early. So 7 o'clock every morning on the dot. He has his meeting with the team coaches, and they'll go through every single athlete and, are they fit? Are they training well? What's happening to them? Are they progressing? Whatever is relevant to those athletes. And they figure out a plan, and if things need to be done, they make sure that's communicated out to the physiotherapists and the IST and all the other people, and the team managers and so on. So they have their meeting. The same happens on the medical side. Same happens with the team managers, and then it all report back up to me. And that ebb and flow happens every day. The actual athletes, we try to avoid them coming into meetings. On the senior teams, they just meet with their team coaches on whatever process works for them. It might be just at training sessions. They might have something a bit more formal. Depends on the event and the personalities and all those pieces. With the age group teams, more often it's a bit more regimented, and you need to teach the athletes a little bit more. So often they'll have a daily team meeting, being told what happens each day and resolving any issues and those sort of pieces. But at the national team level, that's how it works. We've been working that way for a number of years now, and that flows through all the teams, able-bodied and para, in a similar way. But ultimately, it's down to the team leader to decide how they want that particular team to operate. Ingrid?
And your famous duty sheet, which is critical, because the duty sheet actually goes to everyone, and we get the input before from any of the coaches on timelines, how much time ahead of time. But that duty sheet tells you transportation. It breaks everything down for you for your day. So we're organized ahead of time. We're not going in there unknowingly, not knowing where we're supposed to be, when we're supposed to be. It's all outlined. I hate to admit I like the regimentation, but either way. I don't like doing the duty sheet. I just like the order of it. Once we're on site, the other thing that is, especially with the younger teams, is you're right. The team lead does do all the, puts it all together. We all report up to the team lead. But what's really nice about it is that the coaches have the feedback from the head coach, or are able to meet with the head coach and ask if they want to sit next to them for triple, or if you want help with anything. So same thing, it's all nice and organized ahead of time, but at least at the event, you have the luxury, let's say, of having the expertise of the other coaches around you if you ever need. Usually they're not as busy as obviously major events. So
yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. So we did have another question. It's a good question. Would you recommend coaches also apply for team manager positions? Are the qualifications similar or different? I mean, I'll just put my hand up and say yes. I was team manager at Francophone Games. Kind of got asked to do it because it was one of those years with like 1 billion teams. And so yeah, I was like a team of 70 people into Ivory Coast. And yeah, very similar to what you were saying, like just every day, kind of getting things organized and lots of, not just the one story I told, but lots of things happened on that one. And yeah, so I think it does provide really good perspective for a coach to kind of see that side of it. But I mean, maybe I'm off base on there, and it should only be coaches, but I get the sense that it's a good idea. Ingrid, you've been both for sure. So
I couldn't agree more. I think that it's valuable. If you have officiating experience, if you have any of that background, absolutely put it in. I know that the coaches have an application, and you can just list that you'd like to be considered for both, and put your experience for both. Because a lot of times the managers are super busy, and having the ability, have a coach, let's say a throws coach that has only one athlete, oftentimes they can come in and help. And it's been a blessing a lot of times on the younger teams for sure.
Yeah, we have examples on the current World Championship team. So Felix from Quebec did a couple of teams as a team manager first. There are a lot of endurance coaches in the world, and it's a hard area to break into if you want to be in the team leadership side. And yeah, he did a few competitions as a team manager, did very well, and then did a one or two at lower levels as a endurance team coach, and then he was the endurance team coach at the World Championships. There's several examples of that, and it was I started off my first 10 or 15 teams as a team coach, and then I did a few as a team manager, then went back as a team coach, and I did all those different positions. And definitely, if you ever have ambitions to be a team leader, you really do need experience of both. You have to see every side of the coin along the way.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks for that. Another question. So now that we're getting near the end, the questions are coming. So I guess this is sort of two questions. So first question, when one applies, how much is the value of the resume of the coaching resume?
Yeah, obviously the more experience a coach has, the more different athletes they've coached, the higher level they've coached, then that's obviously important, and that's massively taken into account. We do have to have a balance. We do have to have newer coaches through as well, because everybody's resume grows year on year on year. Yeah, that's important.
And sort of the second question from this person is also like, if not selected, do you provide feedback, or how does the coach get feedback on sort of non-selection, like in knowing, okay, was it just a numbers game, or like they really need to work on this aspect of things? How do they know?
We don't automatically feedback to everybody because the numbers are just too big, just too many people, and honestly, we don't know everybody there. But if anybody does want feedback, if they don't get picked and they want to know why, just drop us an email, and we always reply to that.
Okay, yeah, that seems fair. I think I saw the numbers from Colin, like it's something like it was like over like around 100 coaches applying or something like that. I guess depends on the year and the number of teams, but
typically get 100 to 150 applications for what ends up being maybe 40 or 50 positions, depending on the year and everything else, and exactly how it works.
Yeah, so that's really good to know too. I mean, just it's just at some points it's just a numbers game. Like there's only 40 or 50 spots, and if there's that many people applying, then there's going to be people that don't get it. So if you haven't had feedback, feel free to send an email. All right. Any more questions? This is timing pretty well. We're right up at 8 o'clock here. I'm going to give a last call for questions. But if not, thank you so much. I think this has been very eye-opening, and I think really what the people wanted. So this came out of a discussion we had at our mentorship last year, and someone made the suggestion like, oh, you should do a webinar with that, and I think that I think it's really appreciated to know that process, and just to hear some of the stories of like how these things go, because maybe now some people are gonna be like, oh, I don't want that, which is totally fine. It's not an easy job, it's not a cushy job, it's tough, it's every day is a grind. So you gotta be ready for it, and I think you've helped us get more ready, so that's great. Yeah, so I think we're good. Good for questions. So any last final words, Ingrid, Simon?
I don't know, but one thing I do want to emphasize is please do your paperwork and do it properly. Like if your paperwork's not done, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to, like, I don't get to choose, but I'm not going to go back and say, oh, you didn't do this, you forgot your criminal record check, you forgot this. It's an automatic out if your paperwork's not done or your long list isn't done. So just pointing out the obvious.
Yeah, and I guess the last thing I'll say is personal coaching and team coaching are two different things. You can do both, or you can do either, and it really helps to be clear about what it is you want to do and what you're temperamentally suited to do, and push towards that one. And yeah, there's a lot of opportunities out there.
Great. All right. Well, thank you again. It's been so great. Everyone, hopefully you'll sign up for the next webinar if that's in your area of interest, mountain running. And then later on in the fall, we'll have the hammer throw people talking as well. So looking forward to doing another webinar with you this fall. And the recording of this one will be up on the YouTube channel in the next day or two. So thanks again, and have a good night, everybody.